Hey guys, my name is Will Sanders. This is Evolving Content. Today we're going to be discussing my whole setup, specifically as it involves my live stream setup. Now I use the same setup for this video that I'm doing right now that I use for my live stream. So really it's both, but we're going to focus specifically on the live stream aspect because there's a lot of software and specialized cables and just nonsense that's specific to the live stream. This is the video that gets requested on this channel as it does on my actual channel that I do, That Enzo and Lotus. Had a lot of people because we do live streams over there. My wife and I, we do those every week typically on Saturdays. And I'll maybe put up some screen grabs right now, but you can see the progression of our live stream. We're still far from perfect. We're not where I want to be, but we're getting there. We're getting a little bit better every week. We've gone through a lot of ups and downs, and our fans have been more than patient with it, with all the issues and such. So super grateful for that. And some of them have asked for this, so I wanted to do it. Wasn't something I had planned to do, but you know, this channel is here to help people. And right now that's what people want help with. So that's what I'm going to do. So, all right. So if you've seen the live streams that my wife and I do, this is going to be very familiar. If you haven't, I'll put it up on the screen, like a screen grab of what we do, and I can kind of walk it through. You can definitely go and check out one of those live streams if you want as well to kind of see how it's working and so forth. You know, like I said, some weeks are better than others. Sometimes we're working out new kinks. I'm using some beta software, which we'll get into, that sometimes I'll have everything set up. I'll do even like a test, like a private live stream with like a friend or family member. Everything will be good. I'll shut it down, and then like an hour later when I actually go live, something's not working again. So, you know, the very first live stream we did, we literally just did it off the MacBook. So it wasn't this MacBook technically, but just the MacBook. That was it. The built-in camera, FaceTime camera, the built-in mic, that was it. So every channel has like their niche, like what they're going for. And with our live streams, we want them to be helpful. So that's our most important thing. It's a place where people can come and get their questions answered quickly, specifically to them. And while we do answer all the comments and the Instagram messages and the Facebook messages and all that stuff, sometimes it's just nice to get it like in real time. So that's what we want this to be. And that's why, honestly, the MacBook's sufficient. What made me want to go further is really just because I like this stuff. I enjoy this stuff, and I knew it could be better, so I wanted to make it better. So let's get into it. Keep in mind, you don't need all this stuff. As I was just saying, you can just use your computer. I would say the most valuable pieces of equipment you can buy that if you want to spend a little bit of money is a light. It could be something small, like I'm using this little tiny aperture light right now, actually. And I've got this like cheap Home Depot, Lowe's style light as well. Either one of those would be sufficient. The Lowe's Home Depot one is actually cheaper. Lighting and audio. So you could buy an external microphone. Now they make like computer specific microphones. Honestly, I would just get something like one of the Rode mics that I'm using. I'll have this up on the screen right now, because then you can also use that as a vlogging mic. Because if you're doing these live streams, chances are you're doing some other YouTube videos. And even if you're just filming on your phone, you can hook these mics up to your phone and get better audio on your vlogs, which is going to be way more valuable than even the live stream audio personally, because the live stream, you're typically in your house, you can control the environment. So it's going to be better anyways, versus when you're out in the real world and you're dealing with wind noise and just all this other variables. So lights and audio are the two most important things. So just keep that in mind as we get down this list, because it's going to get expensive quickly, and it doesn't have to. It's just the way I've done it. Although you could definitely spend more. So the primary camera that we are on right now, it's this one right here, is the Sony a6100. This is technically my wife's camera. I use this one because we also have this one here. This is my camera. This is the Sony a6500. Now, as I was mentioning, if you've watched our live streams, you know that we run two cameras during our live stream, and it doesn't really matter which one we use. I use that one. I use mine for the pup, what we call the pup cam, that gets moved around, because the main camera, like I'm on right now, is actually fixed to this entire ceiling fixture. So I like to have everything set up the day before, and I use my camera every single day. The wife doesn't. So it just makes more sense for me to put her camera on the mount. Yeah, I could take it off and such, but so that way if I want to vlog or something in the meantime, what I was happening to do was use my iPhone or get her camera out and then set her camera up for vlogging, where it made more sense. So anyways, I use her camera as the main camera. Now I do use a different lens. I don't use the kit lens, so I'm using the Sigma lens. It is the Sigma 16 millimeter 1.4. So it is the Sigma 16 millimeter 1.4. It is a fixed lens, or what they call a prime lens, so it doesn't zoom or anything, but it does create those really nice backgrounds. So like you notice when I zoom in, like how it gets all blurry and stuff, and then obviously when you pull back, it's not going to do as much, but even like when I put my hand up, that's what that lens is going to do. It can go down. It can also do really well in low light. This other lens, it's still a very good lens. It's a zoom lens, which makes it nice for the pup cam too, because I can like film them and show them zoom in and out. It's just easier, where with the other lens, I have to actually get closer. So that's the other reason. Plus, not that it matters so much in the live streams. I'm not moving around that much when I film the pups, but this lens does have optical stabilization in it as well as my camera. So it just makes it a little bit more stable, whereas this camera and this lens, neither of them have optical stabilization. So it makes more sense to mount it. Audio. I mentioned audio is important. You can buy this mic here, this Rode Video Micro, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Video Micro. It's like 50, 60 bucks on Amazon. I'll link it below. All this stuff will be linked below, by the way. All the cameras, the lights, everything. This is fine, honestly. Now, what I'm actually using for this is the Rode Video Micro, or not Micro, the Rode Video Pro Plus. This is certainly overkill. It has its benefits. I don't have to have it as close if I want for audio, but really it's just the better of the two mics, so I use it, obviously, versus the other one. That's really the only reason I use it for the live streams. It's not really doing anything benefit. It has a ton of benefits when I'm vlogging, which we're not going to get into because that's not for this video. But it's just, I have two mics. I'm going to use one of them. That one's better. I use that one. But the other one is perfectly fine. So we've talked about the main camera. We've talked about the secondary camera. That lens, I don't think I mentioned. It's a Sony G-Series F4. Yep. F4 18-105. Is what this is. But I'm going to be completely honest. The kit lens is more than sufficient. Now, my camera didn't come with a kit lens, but like this one here that I'm talking on did. So this is the kit lens that came with it. It's a zoom lens as well. It's 3.5 to 5.6, 16 to 50 millimeter. And it has optical stabilization, which is nice if you're going to vlog or anything with it, especially since this camera doesn't have it. That's fine. Really, the only benefit I'm getting using my lens versus the kit lens is mine can do a little bit better in low light, so it gives me more flexibility is all. If I can't get the room as bright, it's okay because the lens does fine. Versus if you're using the kit lens and you had my light set up, you might need to make the lights a little bit closer or maybe use an extra light or something. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, you can do it in your living room and have the big sit next to a window, you know, and just use natural light. So don't stress over that too much. Yeah, Riley, I know. Riley's down here yowling at me. This video is already going longer than I want it to because there's just so much stuff. All right, so let's talk about this ceiling setup. So one of the YouTubers that my wife and I actually watched together, actually pretty much the only one that we watched, that's like one that we watched together, is a channel called Becky and Chris. If you're not familiar with them, I can link them below. They're really cool people to watch, and they did a video where they built this ceiling contraption. They got it from another YouTuber. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I know I have it, so I can link that as well. But they were inspired by them, and we were inspired by Becky and Chris. So these poles are just from Lowe's. You can buy them Lowe's, Home Depot, any place like that. Really, what was important was I needed a structure that could come down that I could mount the camera to. The reason I like this is because I can move it back. Now, I don't move it back for any type of benefits from camera perspective. I move it back just so I can get it out of my way. So I needed something to come down because I didn't want to have to have a tripod out all the time. What's nice about this setup is if I'm in the middle of filming or something and I need to stop or anything, you know, obviously I have pups. While they don't have any interest in the camera stuff, really, they're shepherds, they're big, and they run around. They could easily knock something over. So I wanted stuff off the ground. What this allows me to do is use a Manfrotto friction arm. I have 2 of them. One mounts the camera, one mounts the microphone, or I can mount a light or anything on it. And then it allows me to run Ethernet cables and power cables. I just run them up the pole to like a ceiling mounted surge protector. And then what happens is I put just a little coffee table below it, and that's where I set my MacBook, and that's how I run the entire live stream, which we'll get into that in a second. So everything's in line to where it needs to be, where the camera cords can reach the MacBook, but then everything else is built in. I use some bongo ties to keep everything loose, or keep everything tight, but then I can easily move things, manipulate things, cords and such. I've got a couple light stands. Now, these are meant to hold like camera flashes or actual lights that I'm kind of rigging these up in a, because again, I haven't spent any money on lights really, other than I've got this aperture light that I use for vlogging when it's dark out or dark in the house. I knew I needed a couple more lights, so I picked these up at Lowe's. I think they were around 15 to 20 bucks each. And then the daytime light bulbs, I'll link those. And then I've got some filters. Basically, I have stuff for flash photography, and I'm just repurposing a lot of that. But really, you can mount it on anything that you can stand on. They come with clips. You just clip them to something. But even these light poles aren't that expensive. What I would maybe suggest, if you've got the budget, before I would buy all the camera stuff, honestly, I would invest in some lighting. Like I said, I'll link a couple below that are inexpensive and should get the job done. I don't have any experience with them personally, but for the cost, I've read a lot of good reviews. They're suggested by a lot of other YouTubers that I follow for this sort of stuff. And Rally, you're messing with the light, which is messing with the shadows. Especially if you're not gonna have like a complete setup like this where you're gonna have to be putting stuff away every week. We used to do our live streams in our living room. It took me like 2 hours to get everything set up, and then I had to break it down afterwards. And every week I never got everything exactly where it was. So I was always having to tweak the lights and everything. It was a headache. This still isn't perfect because I don't have lights, permanent fixtures. I mean, the one up here is, but this one I move out of the way. And then when I do the live stream, because it's actually more, when you have 2 people versus 1, like with just me, it doesn't take much lighting because I can be a lot closer to the camera. But when there's 2 of us, we got to be a little bit farther. Plus we want to have the pups in frame. It requires more lights. It's a headache, honestly. I want to buy a much better light, but it's just not in the budget right now. So I just deal with repurposing the lights. That's why I like to set everything up the day before and kind of tweak the lighting, make sure it's acceptable. Now for the pup cam, I have it sitting on a Mi Photo tripod. It's a carbon tripod. I just thought carbon fiber was cool. It didn't cost much more than the extra one. It's a good solid tripod. It also has the hook on it, so you can put some counterweights if you want. You could use this if I was going to buy a tripod to set up for the live stream. This is the way I would go because you could serve it for a lot more purposes. But frankly, you could just buy an Amazon Basics tripod. They're like 30 bucks. I'll link it below too. I had one for a while. I hated it. And I broke it, which I was using it. I broke it. I mean, it's a $30 tripod. Get what you pay for it. But if you're just trying to do a live stream where you're going to set it up in your house and leave it be, it's fine. If you've got like a coffee table or something, there's even like a really small tabletop tripod that I used briefly. I'll link that below as well that you can get. So like if you're going to set up like maybe in your kitchen or something next to a window and you want to have your camera just on a little tripod, this is perfect and it's super cheap. I'd totally buy it over the Amazon Basic one if you don't need it to mount from the floor. Now, while the cameras can run on battery, obviously I run the pup camera on battery because I don't want to have a cord going to it other than the HDMI cable, which I already have to do, which we'll talk about that in a second. So I run that on battery, which is why sometimes if the live streams go long, pup cam dies for a second, I have to replace the battery. I just have spare batteries ready to go. But with this main camera, I actually have a permanent battery running up to it, and that allows it to power it the whole time. I don't have to worry about that camera at all ever shutting off. So that is definitely something, if you're going to use a mirrorless or a DSLR, I would definitely encourage you to do. So that way you don't have to worry about it. I've got various little ball heads and mounts and stuff. I'll link all the stuff below, but really the main thing is if you're gonna do something crazy like from this to the ceiling is you need these clamps specifically for the friction arms to mount to if you're gonna do like a ceiling mount like this. So basically below I'll separate everything out. Like this is what you need for the ceiling mounts. This is what you need if you're gonna do tripods. And if any of it doesn't make sense, because trust me, it took me a while to figure this all out because nobody does it exactly. You know, the closest people were Becky and Chris, and even theirs isn't exactly like ours. So I still kind of had to piece things together and figure it out. So if you have questions before you spend several $100s on this stuff, if you want to DM me on Instagram or comment below, like, let me know what you're thinking. I can tell you exactly, like, you need this, you don't need that, you do need this, you might need that, you know, and so forth. So, all right, so let's talk about how we actually make this all function. You can stream live from to YouTube right from the YouTube Creators Studio. You just click live, it uses the built-in web camera on your like MacBook or whatever and the microphone, and you're good to go. When you start getting into like adding your own camera, things get a little bit more complicated. Not super complicated, but if you're gonna do like how I'm doing it, I'm using a micro HDMI because that's the hookup that my camera has. And if your camera's you need a camera that has a micro HDMI, or HDMI, but it will be a micro. And then I run it to, basically you need a capture card. So I use the Elgato Cam Link, which is just this little USB stick. And it's got an HDMI on one side, it's got USB on the other. So you plug your HDMI cable into it, like so. And then obviously you're gonna need a dongle as well, because if you're using a newer MacBook, you're only gonna have USB-C. I can't confirm this, but it doesn't seem to work with hubs. So you're gonna actually need a direct dongle. So I would just buy like the Apple dongle. This is a multi-Apple dongle, or you can just buy the single Apple dongle. So I have two of them, and then you'll notice that this HDMI cable is all coiled up because it's much longer. It's 15 feet. This is what I use for the pup cam. That's how I'm able to walk around the room and show them and stuff. So here's the thing. If you're using a MacBook, now if you're using Windows, most of this is going to be the same, but there might be some differences that you can ask me. I might know, but it's been years since I messed with Windows. The cool thing with YouTube and using like the Elgato 4Cam Cam Link, I don't know that I would say it's pricey because compared to alternative, it's really not, but it's around like 130 bucks, I think. And then, you know, you need your HDMI cable, which is like 10, 15 bucks. But the cool thing is the MacBook will recognize it right away. Like you don't have to do anything. It's like plug and play basically. You plug it up, it'll recognize it as an optional camera. So when you go into YouTube, you can just select it as a camera. Instead of choosing your FaceTime camera, you can choose the Elgato 4K cam and you're up and running. And then you can still use your MacBook's built-in mic, or if you've got a mic, obviously if you've got like the Rode mic, if you've got a mirrorless like this, you just plug the mic straight into the camera, like how you do when you're vlogging. Plug your HDMI, and you're good. Everything will run through the HDMI, so your mic is hooked up to your camera like it always is, and you have one cable going from the camera to the computer, and you're good. You don't have to do any other software or anything. You can use YouTube's built-in software. It's not going to be super demanding on your internet or on your computer or anything. Depending on how strong your Wi-Fi is, you might want to use Ethernet. When we were doing the live streams upstairs, I used Ethernet. Now that we're downstairs, literally just a few feet from my router, Wi-Fi's fine. Side note, if you've got like a family and you've got kids or a spouse or whatever, like tell them to chill on Netflix while you're doing your live stream. Don't hog up your bandwidth. Most of you only need one camera. If you're going to do something, where things get a little tricky, and by tricky, I mean expensive too, is if you want to do multi-cams. So I use a software called Streamlabs OBS. Streamlabs OBS just came out for the Mac. In fact, it's not even technically out. It's in what they call beta. If you're not a computer person, beta just means it's not technically finished, but they'll let people use it. You have to apply for it. In my experience, I think it's literally like, hey, can I use it? For some reason can't get approved for it, then you can use just OBS software. If you just Google OBS, it's free, and there's a Mac version that's out. I just like the Streamlabs. It's just a little bit more user-friendly, I guess. The issue with running two cameras is you can no longer do it straight through YouTube. You have to use a third-party software like I'm using. I don't want to go into the weeds, and I don't even remember it exactly, but the short version is just because you have a MacBook Pro doesn't mean that you can actually even run two cameras, because they have to have two ports or something weird. I suspect that 99.9% of you have no interest in running two cameras. If you're that 0.1% that wants to run two cameras, ask me about it in the comments and I will be more than happy to research it. But frankly, it's not worth me researching it for the fact that none of you are going to care about it. But it's super demanding on your computer, and that's going to be a huge limiting factor for you. So I do it because I can, because I didn't buy my computer to do live streams. It just so happens that I bought that computer and I was like, ooh, now we can do 2 cameras with live streams. And I had 2 cameras. I certainly wouldn't go out and buy 2 cameras and do it. Now, one thing you can do, and you're still gonna need the software, but you could probably get by with a slower computer, is you could run 2 cameras in that. One could be your mirrorless or your DSLR. The other one could be your built-in FaceTime camera. Now, even with running one camera, even though you don't have to use Streamlabs OBS or just OBS, I know it's confusing because OBS stands for Open Broadcast System Services. So you have the original OBS, Open Broadcast System, then you have Streamlabs version. So Streamlabs Open Broadcast Service. Anyways, if you're running one of those, if you've watched our live streams, you see some things like, you'll see like the ticker go across the bottom. You'll see that we have like our Instagram and Facebook and stuff in the bottom. You'll see that when people like donate through Super Chat, our lights flash. Now the lights flashing doesn't need Streamlabs. It doesn't use that. That uses a protocol called if this, then that. But where it pops up on the screen with their name and everything, that's Streamlabs doing that. When people subscribe and it pops up, when I'm able to switch between, like when I'm able to throw photos up on all that stuff is Streamlabs. You can't do any of that if you're just using the built-in YouTube. You could do the lights flashing though, because again, that's using if this, then that. If you don't know what that is, it's a free app. You can get it for your phone. If you search YouTube Super Chat in it, it's very straightforward. You sign into your YouTube, you link them. Anytime somebody does a Super Chat, you can set up all different parameters for lights and stuff, and that's all in there. You can do all this from your phone or your iPad or whatever, you know. Like I said, lighting and audio is the 2 most important things. You could get the Rode mic that I was talking about, hook it up to your phone, get the little aperture light, and boom, you'd have a really nice setup. You'd have good clear audio, you'd have good lighting, and the camera's fine. As long as you have enough lighting, those cameras are fine. The limiting factor of the iPhones is the lighting. That's one of the reasons I don't like the vlog on my iPhone. There's other reasons, but you're so restricted by the lighting. When I'm out at the park with the pups on a sunny day, the iPhone looks almost as good as my regular camera, and considering how much easier it is to have it, it's like, why would I use anything else? But it's when it's a not nice sunny day and I'm having to deal with wind and all this other crazy stuff, and the fact that then what if I want to make a call? But anyways, we're getting off topic. The point is, you don't need any of this stuff, but if you want to spend a little bit of money, get lights, get audio. If you want to spend more than a little bit, you can go crazy. And trust me, I'm not the craziest. There's people that spend thousands and tens of thousands and more. But yeah, I think that I'm looking at the counter. This video is already gone 30 minutes on the camera now. I'm sure I'm going to edit this way down, hopefully. But this is probably still going to be like a 20-minute video. So if you've made it this far, I hope I answered all your questions. I hope this makes it clear. I feel like I've been talking fast, so you might have to rewatch it or something. But I say this on every video, but definitely comment below with any questions. I'll be happy to answer them. And before you go out, if you're like into this, if you're like, man, I really want to do this and I'm just going to pull the trigger and order a bunch of stuff, 2 things. 1, please do it through my links, because I do get affiliate commissions for that, which doesn't affect your price whatsoever, but it does help me and the channel out. So I would appreciate it. But not only that, comment below so that you don't waste a bunch of money in buying stuff, because trust me, I've wasted, like if I went back and did this again, there's a lot of things I would probably do differently, or at least in different orders. For starters, I'd probably have better lights right now and I wouldn't have spent money on other things. But the live streams they weren't that big in the beginning. It was just something to do for fun, honestly. And you guys, well, not you guys on this channel, but on the pup channel, you guys they just love them so much that we just want to keep doing them. And the wife loves doing it. And if you've watched them, you know, I kind of just let her do most of the talking because she loves it. But yeah, so I keep rambling, but as always, comment below with any questions. Like if you enjoyed the video. That is the #1 most important thing you could do to help out the channel, is like it, share it if it's been helpful, and you can share it to people that would help as well. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys as always. I will see you next week. I don't even know. My name is Will Sanders. This is Evolving Content. I'll see you next week. Peace.